will go up to Carson City and take public comment in person in Carson City, starting with the first person seated at the table. You will have 2 minutes. Please begin whenever you're ready.
Yolanda Knaak, last name is Knaak. I live at 650 Martis Peak Drive in Incline Village. I was very disappointed with the vote of the TRPA on December 13th to allow urbanization of Incline Village. This vote must be reversed. We cannot do that in Incline Village. The problems we have in Incline Village is evacuation. I should just clarify, the vote was actually like an initial step. It was for 900 housing development, and I talked to one of the TRPA members recently, and he said, "Oh, I didn't vote to urbanize Incline Village," and so I went back to re-listen, and he did vote in favor of 900 new the housing development with the plan. Their plan is to then, the next step is 6,000. And the problem we have in Incline Village is evacuation. If you look at the Caldor fire in South Lake Tahoe, that was a nightmare. And that was a Caldor fire that was headed towards South Lake Tahoe. If it had been a South Lake Tahoe fire, those people would have been toast. And in Incline Village, we have even fewer roads to evacuate on. And our fire chief says we can only go one way on the 2-lane roads. We can't take up both lanes because he says he has to have people coming in to help fight the fire. I also looked into getting another, widening the roads. You can't widen the roads. I looked into other options, and there aren't any, not at this point. So this absolutely must, for the safety of the people in Incline Village. We have over 8,000 people registered to vote there. We have people that are non-voters. We have children. We have thousands of people that come there every day during the summer especially. And, with new developments, they're not going to be able to, especially with the urbanization, increased height and density. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Tess Opferman here on behalf of the League to Save Lake Tahoe, also known as the League, or by our motto, Keep Tahoe Blue. The League is the oldest and largest environmental organization in Tahoe, working to protect the lake for over 65 years. Usually it's Kyle Davis who's here on behalf of the League, and he's been working extensively in partnership with the League CEO, Darcy Collins, for over 10 years, and with this committee and with the state of Nevada to ensure the bi-state compact is upheld and state resources are directed to lake-saving projects and programs. We very much look forward to working with you all during the interim year and the upcoming session. The League's staff of scientists and policy experts, specifically Darcy Collins and Gavin Feiger, are available as resources for all things Tahoe. They work in partnership with the TRPA and other agencies around the lake to address Tahoe's biggest threats and are grateful to represent the broader Tahoe partnership as a leading collaborative partner. We look forward to seeing you at future committee meetings, especially those at the lake. Thank you for your leadership through this committee to help keep Tahoe blue.
Good afternoon, Brett Tibbetts, Tibbitts. I'm with the Tahoe East Shore Alliance. I'm here today to plead with you to actually oversee the TRPA. There is no effective oversight of the TPRA today. They come here often and ask you for money and then come back and give you a glossy presentation. That is not oversight. The TRPA cries out for oversight. A few examples. Number one, the TRPA has the most pathetic conflict of interest rules I have ever seen in 42 years as a lawyer. Cindy Gustafson, the TRPA chair, is married to Wally Auerbach, who owns one of the biggest engineering firms at the lake. Many clients of Auerbach come to the TRPA for approval, but the TRPA conflict rules do not require Ms. Gustafson to disclose the conflict or ever recuse herself. Two, one lawyer, Lou Feldman, represents virtually every developer before the TRPA. He knows more about the TRPA rules than anyone at the TRPA and always gets what he wants. I have never seen one lawyer representing virtually all clients before a governmental agency. 3, the TRPA wants to reduce roadway capacity around the lake to add bike paths. It does not care about wildfire evacuations or reduced ambulance response times that come with reduced roadway capacity. We are sitting ducks to become the next Lahaina or Paradise, California. 4, the TRPA often approves massive new projects without any consideration for evacuation planning or parking. 0 parking requirements. So people park on the street. 5, the 15-member TRPA board is too big. Barely 1/3 live anywhere near the lake. They fly in and fly out for board meetings. Despite the lake having 55,000 residents, not a single resident serves on the board or any of its committees by reason of being a resident. Residents are constantly shut out and disregarded by the TRPA. I could explain much more if you would give me more than 120 seconds. Thank you.
My name is Alex Sigdinis, TSI, GDI, NOS. I'm a full-time resident of Incline Village on the lake's north shore. We need TRPA to protect Lake Tahoe and the basin. It's a national treasure under Nevada and California's stewardship. Yet incredibly, you are the only government body with oversight responsibilities over that bi-state agency. California has none. Please use your oversight, influence, and budgetary control to refocus TRPA on the vital environmental mission it was formed to carry out. Many here have or will spell out in more detail what we feel TRPA needs to do and how it should be reformed. I'll focus solely on ethics. Long ago, as a young officer in the United States Navy, it was drilled into me to ask myself 2 basic questions as a sniff test for ethical behavior and conflicts of interest. First, are you avoiding even the appearance of impropriety? And second, are you absolutely certain your tax dollar expenditures and your official and unofficial relationships are appropriate? If the answer is no to those questions, or even if you find yourself equivocating, that's a big red flag. And on those grounds, I fear the red flag is waving at TRPA. Today, TRPA governors, county officials, misleadingly named nonprofits that sometimes receive Nevada tax monies have a tangled web of leadership, boards, and cozy relationships. Many also have close ties to commercial developers. The governors have no term limits. There's even a financial firewall against Freedom of Information Act requests. Over the years, this has resulted in the loss of checks and balances, of TRPA's public credibility, its effectiveness in environmental policymaking, as well as in mission creep. I urge you to require TRPA to adopt a strict code of ethics and conflict of interest policy as a requirement of receiving state funding. Please help restore TRPA to the truly independent watchdog and publicly accountable agency it must be so that future generations of Nevadans and Americans can experience the natural wonder that is Lake Tahoe. Thank you.
Ellie Waller, Douglas County resident. The 2012 TRPA Tahoe Regional Plan is stale. Existing conditions have changed and environmental impacts go unchecked, in my opinion. This needs to be remedied. We continue to get a barrage from the nonprofits TRPA about successes, but at what expense to the taxpayers and federal government? In 2010, 2 nonprofits emerged, the Tahoe Prosperity Center and the Tahoe Fund, before the 2012 Regional Plan update. Each have unique but similar missions, and now we have the Tahoe Destination Stewardship nonprofit emergence in June 2023. They are all connected and incestuous with TRPA members, nonprofits plus agencies. Transparency is necessary. All these groups are trying to define the issues with more plans than one can keep track of with this resounding message from the TRPA. We still need more money from public-private partnerships, the local jurisdictions, and the federal government. The 777 plan was introduced and Assembly Concurrent Resolution 5 emerged. Things have gotten way too cozy with Tahoe governance. In my opinion, lots of special interests, nonprofits, stakeholder committees, and agencies are feeding at the lake's TRPA monetized trough. I strongly urge you not to endorse anything today until you review the most up-to-date annual audit audit required by NRS 277.220, available from the library as I found it. I reviewed the 2022 and 2023 audits and found the 2022 audit with benchmarks and more thorough info on performance to be more comprehensive than the 2023 audit. This committee is charged with the oversight and reviewing the budget, programs, activities, responsiveness, and accountability of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. The public wants to ensure that there isn't duplicity in the utilization of federal funds and grants. Thank you. Last name Waller.
My name is Ralph Miller. I'm a resident of Cave Rock Estates. What is Tahoe? What is Tahoe? Because without a common vision of that, how can we provide governance and oversight over the Tahoe Planning Authority? Well, in a lot of ways, Tahoe might be like Las Vegas. It's a big draw, lots of visitors, lots of activities, with one major difference. Before Tinseltown was built, there was nothing but barren desert. That's not the case here. There is something here that is significant and needs preservation. And we need to make sure that preservation of this wondrous natural event, place, is paramount in the planning. Not development, not industrialization, not profit, not incestuous relationships as have been discussed. It took great vision and courage to establish the National Park Service. And the National Park Service was established with a mission very similar to the mission that TRPA was established with, to oversee and preserve natural wonders for generations to come. I think that constantly thinking of national park when we're thinking about Tahoe is really critical. Not economic development, not new features. So what do we have today? Recently, on Kale, we have a whole bunch of $1-million condos in high-rise construction directly on the shores of Lake Tahoe.
That is 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Think National Park.
Hello, I am Robert Byron, it's B-Y-R-E-N, and I live along the east shore of Lake Tahoe. And like many, I'm concerned by the pro-development posture that TRPA has adopted in recent years. As a member of the Tahoe East Shore Alliance Tech Team, we studied the wildfire evacuation problem in the Tahoe Basin and concluded that the Paradise, California, and Lahaina disasters would pale in comparison to tens of thousands of lives lost should a Caldor-like fire threaten the South and East Lake communities from the west. Our conclusions: better forest management, reduced emergency response time, streamlined evacuation procedures, and improved capacity along US 50 as the primary evacuation corridor. But without some control over new development, these measures will always fall short. TRPA's approval of new housing, mid-rise condos, mixed-use zoning, and beach resort townhouse projects in an area already overpopulated will just add to the evacuation traffic load and exacerbate the death toll. Photos Travel recently rated Lake Tahoe within the top 10 resorts that vacationers should, and I quote, reconsider, which is a nice way of saying avoid, as a result of overdevelopment and congestion. Our roads are unpassable, our beaches overcrowded and littered, and our campsites bursting at the seams. TRPA needs to abide by its organizing mandate as stated in the Bi-State Compact, which is to establish a balance between the natural environment and the human-made environment. As the TRPA Oversight Committee, it's your responsibility and it's within your authority to hold TRPA to its original goals. and I thank you.
Elizabeth Learnhardt, Zephyr Cove. When the wish to look good prevents us from truly doing good. This adage describes today's predicament for TRPA. With its long-standing restrictive policies on construction, TRPA has been destroying development and tourism alike in the Tahoe Basin. Sensible tourism is necessary for communities like South Lake Tahoe to survive. Rather than defining their environmental goals, ideology and moral grandstanding has been the agenda of TRPA. They joined forces with a few large resorts to create entities that charge for everything from parking to just having the privilege to drive up to the lake. Their 777 plan wants to implement taxes for locals, local business, as well as tourists and commuting employees. They have pushed through ARC 5 last year, which gets this plan one step closer to implication. This is TRPA bypassing the public vote on taxes, as is required by the Bi-State Compact. Caldor Fire and the botched evacuation should have been a wake-up call. But when the complete streets, road diets, reducing vehicle miles travels are on the agenda, the reduced environmental impact and conducting a comprehensive emergency evacuation plan and environmental impact plan are just not their priority. Just like after the Angora fire, it might require a class action suit to make TRPA change course. I'm asking you today to say no to any further funding unless these studies are performed. And the TRPA is submitting to Governor Lombardo's decision to keep the 4 lanes on Highway 50. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, my name is Robert Aaron, Aaron. I am here representing the International Children's Declaration, the Declaration on the Protection on the Human Rights of Children in a Digital Age. First, I'd like to thank you for this meeting, and I thank the Legislative Council Bureau and the Legislative Committee for review and oversight of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. I am a 30-year resident of the Lake Tahoe Basin, a proud father of 2 and married to my beautiful wife Ann for 27 years, and an avid water enthusiast. I want to draw your attention today to a critical challenge facing Lake Tahoe. It is plastic pollution. I will make some essential points. As recently reported, plastic is being discovered in places we never thought of, our blood and bodies. This material is appearing as plastic sewage on Lake Tahoe's pristine shorelines in all sizes. Also recently discovered is that Tahoe Regional Planning Agency approved cell towers disguised as trees containing approximately 10,000 pounds per tower of this material and have the potential and have already released these materials into the surrounding environment. I collected it and sent it in. It had lead in it. This is illegal. This material is entering our drinking water. What are the 2 agencies responsible for protecting the communities, the environment, the inhabitants, and the children doing? I believe a dereliction of duty and a failure to follow their bi-state compact. That means you, TRPA, and the Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board. These agencies are captured by commercial interests. They are refusing to lift a finger despite our multiple appeals and evidence. Some of the important legal issues hopefully will soon be decided in the Federal Eastern District Court of Sacramento in the case of Isaac Stecken versus TRPA and others, which I sent to you provided in the email in a PDF form. I believe each of you should intelligently and carefully read it. It is of the critical moment at this late stage of our entire Lake Tahoe regional communities to stand together to save and protect this vital resource. Our group has strategic path forward, and we are here to share with everyone. Thank you for your time and your attention.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Janet McDougall. I'm a 60-year resident of South Shore. I spent 6 long years leading a group concerned with the proliferation of vacation rentals around the lake. We attended governing board and committee meetings to highlight the negative effects on our communities and the environment. I also contacted the former executive director's office to request a meeting to discuss our concerns, but wasn't given the courtesy of a response. nor was a lower-level staff member directed to contact me. So I went to the board to request they direct staff to contact me. Again, crickets. Being dismissed by people charged with serving the public exudes an arrogance that is beyond inappropriate. While our attempts failed, the basin's preeminent development attorney was granted repeated access, including lunch meetings, with this same executive director. As a former public servant, I can't imagine blowing off a citizen in this manner. Yet I am aware that attorneys for developers often go to great lengths to lobby staff. It happened to me while working for the city and the South Tahoe Redevelopment Agency, and I'm certain it occurs with TRPA staff. Many of the development projects that have been approved or are now in the pipeline present conditions that require significant environmental review, yet in some cases this essential review is lacking. And many projects seek to privatize public beaches and lake access and or build luxury developments. The lake belongs to everyone, not just those financially well off. Many of TRPA's actions appear arbitrary. In particular, many parcels of land that had been deemed environmentally sensitive and unbuildable now have been developed with large homes. Apparently, if you have money to sprinkle on that sensitive land, you can do whatever you like. I often wonder how the previous owners of this land, who paid taxes for years but were denied the ability to build, would feel upon seeing this new development. I could speak for hours concerning this agency, the exceptional actions it took in the past to protect our fragile environment, and how it now is failing in its mission on so many fronts. An overhaul is needed, and local residents need a seat at the table to aid in getting this wayward organization back on track. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to our pleas.
Hello, my name is Natalie Yanish. I'm a resident of Kingsbury Grade. I've been there since 2002. I wanted to give you some comments. I don't feel like the sky is falling like some of the others in the room here. I believe that there has been some good movement forward with the TRPA, and specifically I've been on the Tahoe Living Revitalization and Community Working Group for a number of years since it was founded, and we've had some regulations that were relaxed that is helping to increase density for new housing development, which is needed for the workforce that lives in Lake Tahoe. We are a resort area. We have transient workforce that needs to be housed, and this also helps with going forward with the goals of the EIP as far as vehicle miles traveled, because a lot of these areas that these developments are going to be in are going to allow people to live in the community, work in the community where they live, and be able to get transit locally. So I am pleased that the TRPA board has passed a number of amendments that are going to help with that. We have an aging infrastructure. No one would have ever built Lake Tahoe the way that it is right now. That if there was a planner who came in, they would scratch their heads at it, right? So what we need to do is we need to try to improve the access for people who want to redevelop in Lake Tahoe to deal with the aging infrastructure and the homes that we have that are there now, because it's just not conducive to the community needs. I also want to say I serve on the Kingsbury General Improvement District as a board of trustee, and stormwater is a very large issue that we deal with at the lake. As a small local jurisdiction, we do a lot of the heavy lifting as far as reducing sediment that goes into the lake, and we're not getting a lot of funding that's coming back to our organization, which does a lot of that sediment removal, which is part of the TMDL, which is the sediment reduction levels that were signed off by the counties. That's the Tahoe maximum daily load of sediment that goes into Lake Tahoe, and that mainly comes off of the roads. So we're doing a lot of street sweeping. We're investing in that, and our community does, and we pay for that as residents in our local area. And so it would be nice to see some of those funds coming back in so that we can continue that work. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to take one more commenter in person in Carson City, and then we're going to go to the phones. So we'll go ahead and take that last person in Carson City in person. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
I'm Rhonda Tyser. I'm an Incline resident for 34 years. Today, if TRPA wants state funds, it must meet state priorities by reducing cars in the Tahoe Basin. So far, what TRPA has done hasn't worked. In 2023, there were millions of Tahoe tourists driving millions of miles in their cars around Lake Tahoe. Most of these tourists did not reside in the basin, and most of those miles were for recreation and sightseeing. Perversely, TRPA focused its 2023 car reduction efforts on Tahoe residents' use of their cars. Yes, TRPA voted to increase density in town centers so residents can walk to stores and take a bus to work. And TRPA voted to allow accessory dwelling units to increase the number of residents in residential districts. In 2023, we had 55,500 residents, but 15 million tourists. TRPA should focus car reduction policies not on our 55,000 lake-loving residents, but on those 15 million tourists. The obvious solution to minimizing cars in the basin is to create high-tech shuttle services from rim parking lots near or outside the basin, and those shuttles should travel to specific tourist destinations. We don't need huge parking lots at mobility hubs inside the basin like the Tahoe Transportation District plans to create. We need free shuttle vans from rim lots and on-demand microtransit inside the basin. By all metrics, so far, that's what has worked and will work best to save the lake. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Pamela Sigdinis. I'm a full-time resident on Nevada's North Shore. I have an answer to your question. First of all, it's lovely, and I'm delighted to be here with all of you today. An answer to who to meet with? Please come meet with the residents of the Tahoe communities. We would love to host you. Please come. Really, we would love to have you. I'm one of many residents, many of whom had to leave today. Encircling the lake, we feel a deep responsibility to be caring stewards of this national treasure. We are also not compensated to be here. In a completely bipartisan effort, many of us have volunteered thousands of hours to attend public meetings and to offer constructive, well-researched testimony with two goals in mind. The first, to protect Lake Tahoe from pollution and harm. And the second, to ensure the public safety of residents and visitors. I really want to underscore public safety. Chair Daley, you asked a very important question earlier. I can answer it for you. What are the two priorities? The answer to your hierarchy question, public safety and the safety and well-being of the lake. Those are the two priorities. We look to our government to provide those things for us. You would think that TRPA would be our biggest ally, but that's not the case. When we asked TRPA directly, why isn't it doing more to prioritize the lake's health and the public safety, we are told, and I quote, the developers are the TRPA's customers. That would make the originators of the TRPA roll over in their graves. The agency has lost any pretense of being an independent environmental agency. In the past decade, TRPA's leadership has retooled to prioritize developers. They are bringing harm to the lake.
Wrap it up. Your 2 minutes. Maybe you can wrap it. You can submit the rest of whatever you have in writing.
I just want to say this agency does harm by creating greater demand. We really need your oversight. Please dive in. We want to spend time with you, all of you. Please, we beg you. We're here because we care about the lake. We need your oversight. Thank you. By the way, if you haven't read my article, I encourage you to do so. Thank you.
Dana Tibbetts, Tahoe East Shore Alliance. Thanks for your patience. I hope you hear what we've stayed all day to say to you. In my opinion, we are quickly approaching a tipping point into deep economic and environmental collapse from which Lake Tahoe may not recover. TRPA's failure to manage the fundamentals is leading to total brand crisis, as Fodor's No List has told the world. Let's be clear, Tahoe is just a brand to TRPA. It's not a national treasure, but a golden calf. There aren't enough consultants in all of Wood Rogers to reverse this trend. They're all too busy creating big plans, grand schemes, and dazzling visual aids for TRPA's next big overreach, spending millions in taxpayer dollars on things most of us taxpayers don't want. Judging by Wood Rogers' 28-page contract for the US 50 CMP we've talked about today, they are bound by that contract to deliver only plans in full compliance with those TRPA objectives. So multimodal bike paths on US 50 align nicely with their Safety First campaign, but evacuation considerations, they're not even mentioned. Farming out planning to consultants enables TRPA to avoid accountability, liability, environmental reviews, and meaningful public interface. By running projects through multiple agencies and a complex of auxiliary organizations, TRPA is able to operate under the radar, unencumbered by messy regulatory constraints, public opinion, or transparency requirements. Hence the flurry of these public-private partnerships that have sprung up in recent years. So many you can't even count them. These veiled entities shield TRPA development schemes and financial transactions from public view and your oversight. They also obscure the only kind of trail that TRPA wants to keep hidden, their money trail.
Wrap up, please.
As the Oversight Committee, you are our only and perhaps last hope of turning this ship of state before it's too late. Thank you, and please add my comments to the record.
Give them to our staff, and we'll make sure we put your full remarks in.
Sorry?
So if you give a copy to
I
our
shall,
staff,
yes, I will.
They'll put the full remarks in the minutes. Please proceed.
Good afternoon. I'm Richard Miner, 25-year resident of Incline Village and past president of the Incline Village and Crystal Bay Historical Society. In 2004, in what in retrospect was one of the most controversial and ill-advised decisions ever, the TRPA handed down a determination that using a private residence as a commercial lodging for short-term rentals was a permitted residential use of the property, and it left it to the counties around the lake to work out the details. You've all heard of the peril of unanticipated consequences. This decision was made without benefit of an environmental impact assessment or study, EIS they're called, on the basis of planning staff research and the use of so-called environmental checklists. And it must be said, it had copious lobbying by real estate and building development interests and a minimum of public input and debate. That said, there are currently several major projects pending at Lake Tahoe which should require by law approval by the TRPA. TTD's Bus Hub initiative, which is a boondoggle in the making right now, mitigating the impact of tourism on the Tahoe Basin, promoting affordable housing, the building of accessory dwelling units supposedly to provide workforce housing. The TRPA Oversight Committee needs to request that the Nevada Legislature require an EIS before any of these projects can be permitted, period. Finally, every time an area plan is amended or modified, the TRPA needs to conduct an environmental impact assessment. They continue to refuse to observe their own rules to do this. Thank you.
You're wrapping up? Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Titus, for your comments. They're right on.
Please proceed.
Good afternoon. Janine Nair for the record, November Yankee Radio Echo. Members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. I'm a resident of the Tahoe Basin in Douglas County, and I'm here today because I have technical concerns with how TRPA is driving decisions that are counter to the health of the lake and the community. Having spent a career as part of teams developing and designing highly complex systems, the key for each successful program was the function of systems engineering, the function which looks at the effects of each part on one another to optimize and balance the requirements. It's critical because if you don't have systems engineering, you will have unintended consequences. As an example, approving developments, including the Tahoe Blue Center, new housing units in South Lake Tahoe, without regard to evacuation, is going to be a problem. Both were built with inadequate parking to cover the occupancy. Obviously, there was no thought given to evacuations. In fact, it's clear that the inadequate parking provision was partly driven to further justify the urgency for funding for various transportation systems. We were very lucky in Caldor, but next time, we may not be so lucky. If a fire starts in Tahoe during an event at the Tahoe Blue Center, where no one's driven, they've all taken buses, how do we evacuate those people? Whose responsibility is it? If an evacuation is called at 2 a.m. near the low-income housing, who evacuates the people in the low-income housing if they have no provision for any transportation? On another front, it's funny. People talk about reducing the vehicle miles driven by residents, but yet no one's asked residents what they could do to help vehicle miles traveled. I'm not sure if you're aware, but every one of us in Douglas County has to drive to the post office every day to get our mail. Why can't somebody talk to the postmaster and say, get a couple of those really efficient vehicles and deliver mails to the neighborhoods? That would keep a lot of locals off the street every day. Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Learnhardt, Zephyr Cove. I would like to tag on to the Jennifer Davidson's and Scott Morgan's presentation about microtransit at the South Shore. I would like to expand the background, how it came about, and what I, as a resident, ask you to do, because this is a quick thing that you can fix. The Douglas County contributes the lion's share per year, $600,000 to the funding of the Lake Link, which is the company that provides the ride service. It's free, as was mentioned by Alexis Hill. This money comes from the TOT, or Transient Occupancy Tax, that's generated at the Douglas County Lake District. TRPA has mandated that parts of these funds, the exact amount is variable, it's 0.5 to 1% of the total TOT, be given to Tahoe Douglas Visitor Authority, the sole owner of the South Lake Tahoe new event center. They in turn distribute it to the South Lake Tahoe non-profit called SSTMA, which is the operator of Lake Link. As a resident of Zephyr Cove, I must object to the neglect of our locals by not being included in the service area of Lake Link. This committee has the authority to direct TARPA to mandate Lake Link to serve Nevadans. Why else would we send our tax money to California? And as a resident in Zephyr Cove, I was ill after major surgery for 2 months in 2022 and could not travel. There was absolutely zero transportation. Thank God to Safeway, delivering home goods and groceries, and my friends that I could get taken care of. Thank you.
Hello, Legislative Committee. Thank you for your time and consideration. And my name is Niobe Burden Austere. I have a property owner in Tahoe Vista for since 1998 and a conservation photographer. I wrote 6 or 7 public comments, which I submitted by email to all of you a couple times probably now. And so I'm not going to go over those. Obviously, there's a lot of details in those public comments. They were comments that were submitted to TRPA in previous months and remain unanswered in a lot of cases. I just wanted to make sure that TRPA is made accountable for their responsibilities. I do want to point out the housing amendments that were passed last month and whether they are truly making that affordable housing available versus achievable, which I saw as a loophole. Achievable being for what they say is the missing middle, but there's no study saying exactly who those people are, what income levels they are. It just was, I see it as a loophole for market rate housing. and this needs to be looked at very carefully. In addition to that, why don't we, rather than support an orderly growth, as I keep hearing, why aren't we addressing sustainable growth? Consider the 80,000 people that the water districts are saying they are planning for. Just in Carson alone, we have a huge number of lots of population growth in the area, not only not so much in Tahoe, but in Truckee and Reno and Carson. All these areas also affect the lake. In 2012 is when that development cap was put in place in the regional plan. That's when the last environmental study was done. Maybe this needs to be reevaluated, considering the capacity changes as a result of climate change as well as the area.
2 minutes are up.
Please make sure that they are being accountable. Thank you very much, and speak to the community.
Thank you.
Good evening. Ellie Waller, I strongly urge you to request the bi-state consultation on transportation be reconvened. Transportation issues were front and center here. Much has changed since their last meeting, and review of their past recommendations and up-to-date funding strategies required their attention with possible guidance from this committee. I requested information on their last report. TRPA provided me the date 2019 is the last report. Additional information is available on the TRPA Transportation Program page, Sustainable Transportation Funding. The bi-state consultations do not have seated members. They are called by representatives of the two states on an ad hoc basis for advice to be given and views to be exchanged about a specific topic. Participants are selected depending on the topic. There may or may not be any sort of report from that consultation. I believe any meeting by the bi-state consultation group, when convened, reports should be mandatory, allowing the public and the agencies to access their work. In an upcoming committee session, an update on the status of the Lake Tahoe Restoration Act funding is appropriate before this committee. This will be the last issuance as it sunsets in 2034. The need for this funding was touted at the Lake Tahoe Summit. The summit highlighted the collaboration of the bi-state, state, federal, private, etc. With so many issues rising to the level of importance and not addressed, in my opinion, how does TRPA and the local jurisdictions continue to spend millions and millions of dollars on unresolved issues? Thank you.
Thank you. Please proceed.
And Chair and your committee, please, I want to let you know how much all of us appreciate all of you. The number one thing I think that has been stated here and why we are all here is the lake and the lake's health. Period. 100%. I just wanted to bring it to your attention, if none of you know. There was 38 lakes around the world tested for microplastics and pollution. Can any of you tell me what place Lake Tahoe came in? Where would you think that it would be? Out of 38 lakes globally that were tested, where do you think Lake Tahoe would be? Because of TRPA's great, saving of the lake. We are the third most polluted lake in the world for microplastics that were studied. I don't think Miss Reagan can smile too much under her watch to be number third. I would hope to us at least to be up above the 30s. Thank you for your time today and all of your effort. And please look into that case, Isaac Stecken versus TRPA. I think you will find it very enlightening. And I would like to say for children, the Children's Defense Initiative appreciates your time, and thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you.
Alex Sigdenis, TSI, GDI, NOS, again, a resident of North Lake Tahoe. I'd like to finish by saying please use your oversight, influence, and budgetary control to get TRPA focusing on the vital environmental mission it was formed to carry out. Specifically, we need TRPA to do the following. conduct an updated, comprehensive environmental impact study, and determine the carrying capacity of the basin that reflects the dramatic changes in the basin's population, visitation, and climate. 2, develop a single, comprehensive wildfire evacuation plan in concert with responsible federal, state, and local agencies. 3, independently validate the cumulative impact of the environmental traffic evacuation of large developments rather than regarding each solely on an ad hoc basis, which is what they do now. And finally, as a public serving agency that receives state and federal monies, TPRA must adopt a strong conflict of interest and our code of conduct. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other in-person public comment?